Welcome to the debate. So imagine a business with flawless accounting.
Okay, I'm imagining it.
It has perfect liquidity, incredibly low debt, massive profit margins. I mean, by every traditional Wall Street metric, it is a roaring, unquestionable success.
Yeah, they'd be popping champagne.
Exactly. But in the world of cooperative enterprise, this exact same business might actually be considered a complete catastrophic failure.
Which sounds completely counterintuitive, right?
It really does. Why would it be a failure? Well, because we aren't just looking at a balance sheet here. We are looking at an entirely unique structural landscape.
Yeah, and it's one of the most fascinating accounting conflicts out there, I think, because it forces us to ask, are we measuring a traditional business or are we measuring a community movement?
Right, exactly.
Because if you try to measure a cooperative using purely corporate standards, you end up with a fundamentally distorted view of reality.
And that tension is exactly what we are unpacking today. We are examining a really comprehensive framework on cooperative accounting and financial analysis.
It's dense, but it's good.
It is. And the central question emerging from the source material is profound. Basically, when you're evaluating the health and viability of a cooperative, which framework should take analytical precedence?
Right. Do we prioritize the traditional financial metrics, so things like liquidity, solvency, and profitability, or must we prioritize the cooperative-specific metrics that measure actual member participation and commitment?
And I will be taking the stance that traditional financial ratios must take absolute precedence.
Unsurprising.
A strict financial viability is the non-negotiable bedrock upon which any cooperative mission relies. I mean, math simply does not care about your mission statement.
Well, and I will be arguing that the cooperative-specific, member-centered metrics are the true fundamental indicators of a cooperative's health.
The lifeblood, as it were.
Exactly. They measure the unique operational purpose of the institution. Without strong member metrics, your so-called cooperative is entirely indistinguishable from a standard profit-maximizing corporation.
All right, well, let's ground this in a very simple reality then. My position is that financial survival and operational efficiency are absolute prerequisites for serving anyone at all.
Sure, survival is important.
It's everything. You cannot empower a community, you cannot provide cheaper fertilizer to farmers, and you cannot offer better credit rates if your organization is bankrupt.
I mean, obviously, but
Let me just look at the source material here. The baseline for survival is measured by the current ratio. The benchmark here is maintaining 1.5 to 2.5 times more current assets than current liabilities.
right, the standard buffer.
Yes, you need that adequate buffer to meet obligations without panic. And furthermore, you have to enforce strict cost discipline. The framework actually demands an operating expense ratio kept at 30% or less.
Which is a very tight margin.
It has to be. If your administrative and operational costs are eating up 35, maybe 40% of your revenue, you are hemorrhaging the very resources you promised to protect. Solvency and liquidity have to come first.
See, the problem with demanding traditional corporate margins is that it fundamentally misunderstands what this entity was built to do.
By expecting it to survive,
No, yes, basic solvency obviously matters, but the absolute lifeblood of the organization is found in its member-driven purpose. The framework highlights the patronage ratio.
okay, let's talk about the patronage ratio.
Right, which measures the volume of member transactions against total transactions, and it sets a strict benchmark of at least 70%.
Which is high.
It should be high. It also highlights the capital buildup ratio, requiring an annual increase in share capital of at least 10%. Let's look at your perfectly solvent example from earlier.
The champagne popping one?
Yeah, that one. A cooperative could have flawless standard accounting. The current ratio is 2.5, margins are excellent. But if its patronage ratio is sitting at, say, 30%.
Well, then it's diversifying.
No, it is failing. It's failing its legal and ethical mandate. It is just a business extracting value from the general public to enrich a small group. Member participation isn't some, secondary luxury you check on after the bills are paid. It is the entire reason the doors are open.
Okay, let's pressure test that idea of the doors staying open by looking at immediate short-term survival.
Go for it.
Because liquidity isn't just having money in the bank. It operates like the shock absorbers on a heavy-duty truck.
Shock absorbers, okay.
Think about it. You can have a pristine engine and a deeply committed driver. But if you hit a massive pothole and you have no shock absorbers, your axle snaps today.
I mean, it's a dramatic analogy, but
It's what the quick ratio, or the acid test, is measuring. The framework expects a benchmark of 1.0 or greater. This means your cash plus the money owed to you right now, your receivables, can entirely cover your immediate short-term liabilities.
Without selling inventory.
Exactly. You don't want to rely on selling off your warehouse inventory just to make payroll. If your quick ratio drops below 1.0, you are driving without shock absorbers.
Right.
All the noble cooperative goals in the world won't matter if an unexpected expense forces you to shutter operations.
Okay, if you're listening to this and you come from traditional corporate finance, you are probably nodding along with that.
Because it's sound logic.
But the source material explicitly warns us about applying that traditional corporate panic to a cooperative ecosystem.
Corporate panic?
Yes, you want a massive cash cushion. Let's look at the cash ratio. Just pure cash against current liabilities. The framework points out that the benchmark for a cooperative's cash ratio is surprisingly low.
Very low.
Right, it's between 0.20 and 0.50.
Which, let's be honest here, would make a traditional financial analyst break out in a cold sweat.
Oh, absolutely.
Having only 20 cents on hand for every dollar you owe in the short term, that seems incredibly risky.
It does seem risky, but the source provides the crucial context for why it's so low. Cooperatives rarely keep high idle cash, and frankly, they shouldn't.
Why not have a safety net?
Because hoarding cash goes directly against the cooperative principle. Surplus cash is meant to be actively reinvested into services for members or returned to them as patronage dividends.
But what about emergencies?
The text explicitly states that an acceptable immediate cash cushion is just 40 cents. Keeping cash velocity high and idle cash low is a feature here. It's not a bug.
I don't know if I'd call running near zero a feature.
But if you optimize purely for your traditional financial shock absorbers, you end up hoarding capital in a bank account that rightfully belongs in the hands of your members.
It belongs to the institution ensuring their future.
Members who might desperately need it for their own operations right now. You are literally starving the community to pad the balance sheet.
Look, you can survive a tight cash month if your foundation is rock solid. But if you've masked that minimal cash flow with debt, that is where the real danger lies.
Okay, let's talk about debt.
Let's look at the underlying structure. Long-term stability relies heavily on leverage. The solvency and leverage ratios dictate whether the institution actually belongs to the members or to the bank.
A fair distinction.
The framework outlines the debt-to-equity ratio with a strict benchmark of 1.0 or less. And it notes many cooperatives target a highly conservative 0.5 to 1.0.
Meaning they have $1 of their own equity for every 50 cents they borrow.
Exactly. When a cooperative targets a debt-to-equity ratio of 0.5, they are intentionally ensuring that the members have massive skin in the game.
Right.
That prevents external creditors from effectively becoming the shadow owners of the cooperative. Because if you don't enforce these traditional solvency benchmarks, one bad crop cycle or one macroeconomic downturn will wipe out the entire institution.
Sure, leverage can be dangerous.
If the bank calls in the loans and you are over-leveraged, the members lose their entire underlying investment.
Well, we actually agree that a strong equity foundation is vital.
Oh, we do?
Yes, but the traditional metric only tells you that you need equity. The cooperative metric tells you how that equity must be formed.
What do you mean?
This is where the capital buildup ratio is so critical. You have to see an annual increase in share capital of at least 10%.
Okay, sure.
You can have a fantastic equity ratio on paper. The bank isn't breathing down your neck. Your member-funded base is at 60% of total assets. It looks rock solid.
But
what?
if that capital buildup ratio isn't hitting 10% year over year, your cooperative is essentially a zombie.
Wait, how is it a zombie if the equity is stable and the debt is low? That's a fortress. Because the static snapshot of solvency means nothing if the dynamic pulse of the membership has flatlined.
Flatlined?
Yes. The capital buildup ratio measures ongoing active member commitment. If members aren't continuously buying in, if they aren't, dedicating portions of their surplus back into share capital, it means they no longer see value in the institution's future.
Or maybe they just had a lean year.
But a fortress with no new recruits eventually falls. You need that dynamic cooperative pulse, not just a historical snapshot of paid-in capital from 10 years ago.
Okay, but a solid structure is just a parked car. We need the engine generating returns to actually attract that new capital you're talking about in the first place.
Engine of returns, here we go.
A cooperative must be an engine of economic value, which means we have to look at profitability and efficiency. Earning a net surplus is the ultimate proof of value creation.
Value for who, though?
Look at the return on assets, or ROA. The framework expects a benchmark of 5 to 10% to prove how efficiently the cooperative's infrastructure generates surplus.
Right.
More importantly, return on equity, ROE, should be between 8 and 15%. If a dairy cooperative invests heavily in a new processing facility and it generates an ROE of 12%, that is an incredibly attractive return on the farmer's investment.
Okay, but
Let me just finish this thought. Without generating that baseline surplus, the cooperative has absolutely no capacity to reward its members, issue patronage refunds, or expand its services.
sure, a 12% ROE looks spectacular on Wall Street.
It looks spectacular anywhere.
But if you pull back the curtain on that net surplus and find out where it came from, the entire narrative can just totally fall apart.
How so?
This is why measuring net surplus is entirely meaningless without simultaneously applying the patronage ratio.
I have to push back there. Profit adds to the capital base regardless of its origin.
No,
It strengthens the cooperative's ability to serve its members. Money is money.
you're missing the forest for the trees here. The patronage ratio demands that at least 70% of transactions are with members. Imagine your dairy cooperative hits that 12% ROE, but its patronage ratio has plummeted to 40%.
Okay.
That means the majority of the surplus is being generated by extracting profit from non-members in the open market.
Well, they're subsidizing the members then.
You are acting exactly like a commercial dairy processor. Are you actually operating a successful cooperative at that point? Or have you just built a standard profit-seeking corporation that is masquerading as a cooperative to exploit tax benefits?
That's a bit cynical.
It's the reality. A cooperative surplus must be a reflection of member economic participation, not general retail exploitation.
That is a sharp reality check. And I won't deny that a cooperative cannot permanently abandon its patronage core.
Exactly.
But even if the patronage ratio dips temporarily, the surplus generated from non-members ultimately subsidizes the critical services provided to the actual members.
If they ever bring it back to the members.
Let's look at how that surplus has to be generated. The sheer operational speed. To get those returns, capital has to move efficiently.
Right, efficiency ratios.
The framework gives us clear benchmarks for this. Inventory turnover should be 3 to 6 times per year. Receivables turnover should be 6 to 12 times per year. This dictates how fast you collect what you are owed.
Which brings us to days sales outstanding.
Right. When you look at days sales outstanding, or DSO, the benchmark is 30 to 60 days.
Basically 1 to 2 months.
This is the physical timeline of getting paid. If your receivables turnover slows down and your DSO creeps up to 61 or 70 days, the interpretation in the framework is clear. It's too slow and you need to tighten credit.
Tighten credit on your own members.
Bad receivables are a disease that infects the entire cash flow cycle. This absolute financial velocity is required to protect the institution. You cannot pay your wholesale suppliers with empathy. You pay them with collected cash.
Wow. Okay. Empathy. Context is everything. And that strict interpretation, this idea that you just tighten credit, is exactly where the traditional framework clashes violently with the reality of a cooperative community.
Because they want special treatment.
Because these benchmarks are highly context dependent. Take days in inventory, where the benchmark is 60 to 120. The framework explicitly notes that this depends on the crop cycle.
Sure, crops take time.
The math has to yield to nature. And if we go back to your DSO example, you say a 65-day collection period means we must aggressively tighten credit.
It does. It's a red flag.
But what if those receivables are owed by farmer members who have just suffered a severe localized drought? They literally won't have cash until the late harvest in 90 days.
Which is a terrible situation.
But if the cooperative doesn't collect, it might default on its own obligations.
A traditional commercial bank tightens credit and forecloses on those farms.
Right.
A cooperative might intentionally accept a slower receivables turnover, stretching that DSO to 90 or 100 days because its mandate is to serve the specific seasonal vulnerabilities of its members.
But at what cost?
You are trying to appease an arbitrary metric of financial velocity, but the cooperative was specifically designed to absorb those local economic shocks.
Look, I understand the need for operational empathy, particularly regarding crop cycles. I really do.
Do you?
Yes. But if you allow your DSO to stretch to 120 days out of community solidarity, you critically compromise your current ratio, you utterly deplete your cash ratio, and suddenly the cooperative itself cannot pay for the next season's fertilizer.
Well, it could use reserves.
If the cooperative collapses because it failed to enforce basic collection efficiency, it has failed all of its members, including the very ones it was trying to help. Financial discipline is the protective shell that keeps the community safe from wider market forces.
And I would counter that if the cooperative enforces financial discipline so rigidly that it acts exactly like a predatory lender,
A predatory lender? Come on.
driving its own members into bankruptcy just to keep its DSO under 60 days on a spreadsheet, it has destroyed the very community it was chartered to protect. What is the point of a perfectly solvent institution if the members it was meant to serve have all been forced out of business?
It is a profound balancing act. I'll admit that.
It is.
When I look at this entire framework, I see that strict financial discipline, maintaining strong shock absorbers with liquidity, keeping leverage safely under control with a debt-to-equity ratio under 1.0, ensuring strong returns on equity, and driving operational efficiency.
The traditional metrics.
Yes, these are the absolute non-negotiable requirements. They ensure the cooperative remains a viable, structurally sound vessel capable of navigating vicious economic waters. Without these traditional metrics firmly in place, the cooperative is merely a good idea waiting to go bankrupt.
You think it's just about survival?
You have to secure the oxygen mask on the business before you can assist the community.
And when I look at the same framework, I see that the member-centered ratios are the compass that gives the journey any meaning. Ensuring a patronage ratio above 70%, demanding a dynamic capital buildup of at least 10% annually, these prove that the cooperative is actually alive.
Alive, but maybe vulnerable.
You can build the strongest, most financially impenetrable organization in the world with perfect traditional metrics. But if the members aren't the ones utilizing it, funding it, and benefiting from it, you've just built another corporation. The cooperative metrics are the only things that ensure the entity is fulfilling its unique structural purpose in the economy.
You know, it seems we are arriving exactly where the source material itself concludes.
How so?
The framework offers a final, explicit insight. It basically says, no single ratio tells the full story.
Well, it's true. Sound financial analysis in this space inherently requires looking at liquidity, leverage, profitability, efficiency, and member participation together.
Right. You cannot isolate the financial engineering from the human beings who own the entity. It is a delicate, constantly shifting equilibrium. As an analyst or, a board member, you have to judge whether a cooperative is, as the text puts it, serving members today while staying strong for tomorrow.
A great quote.
If it serves members too aggressively today, like stretching out those receivables for drought relief until the cash runs dry, it loses its strength to exist tomorrow.
But on the flip side, if it guards its strength too jealously for tomorrow, hoarding cash and acting like a commercial bank, it fails to serve its members today.
Exactly. It forces anyone looking at these numbers to be more than just a mathematician.
Oh, definitely. You have to understand the specific community, you have to know the crop cycles, and you have to deeply understand the human realities operating behind the balance sheet.
Which means there is so much more complexity to explore within this framework. It isn't just about whether the math balances. It's about the constant daily negotiation between the harsh realities of the open market and the specific needs of a local community.
Absolutely.
And that leaves us with a lingering question to ponder. When the economic climate gets rough and resources become scarce, do you sacrifice your financial buffers to protect your members, or do you squeeze your members to protect the institution?
A tough call.
We'll leave you to draw your own conclusions on where that ultimate priority lies.